Peace, Islam, Moors, greetings, Americans, and members at thctrust.org. I want to revisit this document, and I might try to read through it, but I really want to encourage you to download this document. If you receive this email wherever you're at, you should be able to click this link and download this document, spread it, talk about it. This is a human rights claim. And there's some errors and things like that in there. Some things, I was up working probably 6 or 7 days on this. So when you have those sleepless nights, and unfortunately I don't have anybody to edit my work. So that being said, um when I do write things like this, if you're really good at writing out there and you can edit my documents, that'll be something that you could really assist us at thctrust.org. People I can send my things to. That's going to really take out a little bit of time to read them over and think about them. You understand what I'm saying? Just, to keep me, keep my stuff sharp. That's just how administrative things go anyway. Usually you have somebody that writes the first draft and then somebody that kind of overlooks it for spelling errors and things like that. But that being said, I just kind of want to go through this again because apparently this has hit some nerves, obviously, because behavior change. We're getting to the time right now where many of the people on the distribution list, let me show you. The distribution list is everyone who's going to receive this. But let's say one of the people, let's keep it real. One of the people on the distribution list all of a sudden starts making calls to the victim's girlfriend once she gets this. And here's a distribution list. So it's going to the governor of New York, it's going to Hillary Clinton, it's going to the actual, victim, it's going to the judge that's acting, it's going to the acting sheriff and the acting warden of the jail, and it's going to the acting attorneys. And these are the attorneys that are either trying to prosecute or the attorneys that are being forced upon the Moor based off of their process of having to have a barred attorney, which I could be wrong, but I thought bar stood for the British Accreditation Registry. Really don't know, so I could be wrong, but that's a very minor thing in regard to the allegations that's raised, I do believe. And if not, I'll correct it. Anyways, I wanted to bring this up again because, yes, it obviously rattled some nerves. And so once I heard that, I said, well, let me go back and read through it again. So I read through it again, and I was very, not that I didn't write it and not that I didn't know what was in it, but after stepping away from it and coming back and looking at it again, I said, damn, I really wouldn't want to be the person on the receiving end of, this type of document. I wouldn't want to be one of the human rights violators because it just looks bad upon them. But again, everything in it is true, especially if the allegations are not rebutted. So, I'm only saying that to say, please read through this document and download it and, make it better when you know more that is having their rights violated. And this could be used for anybody, not just Moors, but I'm speaking to Moors because I know that the people who wrongfully identify themselves as African American, that is funding, that is acting as the surety that's funding most of this form of commercial system. They're Moors, and they're ones that are suffering, and they're ones that can use this. So, at least I think so. But anyways, if this does nothing else, it shines light on the situation of what's occurring, and that's what's most important. Some people want to wash their hands with things and don't want nothing to do with it, and that's fine too if this is what leads to remedy. Now, when you do something like this, of course, you want to do habeas corpuses and quo warrantos and everything else, but I believe multiple angles, hitting people from multiple angles. This is why I'm sharing this document with you, because if you know someone else that you probably don't even deal with on a daily basis, but just because you know that they're in the same they're how can I say it? Because I'm not going to use the term in the same fight or in the same struggle, but if they're in the same uh, conscious awakening that you are, then assist them by, giving a service or doing something that you can do for that person. And so that's why I'm giving you this. Use it, and I'm going to be passing some other documents down the lines like this also. So of course, and then modify this, right? Just because I use this Moorish flag doesn't mean you have to use this Moorish flag. Okay? Um, just because I write my name like this doesn't mean you have to write your name like that. And if you're just doing that because you don't know which way it should be done, that's a form of laziness that you should correct. Of course, you have to balance your time, but based in your time, start researching some of these little intricacies, details, and elements. Because I damn sure don't have them all, but I'm learning and I'm developing. And every time, that's why things are changing. Because and you guys probably don't know where I'm coming from with this, but I'll just say when I'm assisting a lot of people, people ask me about details of things. Or should I do it like this, or should I do it like that? And, you know, I don't mind, let me put it like this. I don't mind assisting some people, with intricacies. But when you're never looking up any of these things yourself and going on your own study, then you're just depleting the resources of those of us that do. We lay foundation work to give you something to stand on while you dig and do your research. But your research can't just be running around in circles listening to what this person says and that person says and what text says and what the next person says. Part of it has to be digging in and doing your own research, and then hit me back with a rule 1, 2. Hey, you may want to change to this because of whatever, whatever, whatever. You know what I'm saying? And then, or just modifying it and making a change in your document. Okay, I said enough about that. So, that being said, I don't think for 1 second I'm putting the documents that I do for people, that I put them out here for templates. Don't think for 1 second that I'm saying they're perfect without spelling errors and everything else, because I know there's errors in them. I do know that. You understand what I'm saying? But I got to balance my time with my work, as we all do. But you know what I'm learning is, the balance of your time is just that. It's your time. Don't worry about other people's clock and schedule. And if you can do administrative procedures and stuff like that, think about your time when you are saying, should I give them 7 days? Should I give them 10 days? Should I give them 14 days? All right. Enough said about that. So human rights complaint, this is following right off their form and procedure. If you want to know more about that, go to thctrust.org and visit the Fighting Corruption link and watch the human rights stuff, the other video. So information on the complainant. So you have to put who it's submitted by. This is me. And then the victim. That's the victim. I just want to read how I introduced us. One, Solomon El Morel, one of the indigenous people of the Moorish nations of the Americas. We are descendants of the ancient Moabites / Moors by birthright, freehold primogeniture status, with our inheritance in Northwest Mexico, North America. I put some thought into it and I worded it like that because when you write in these things, you really want to say things that can't be challenged, and that's called truth. So your emotions and opinions don't really go into that. And I picked these things because if one was going to challenge me on these particular things, it wouldn't be anything that I have to prove, because there's public record that proves that. So you can kind of get that proof from the treaties and the Constitution and congressional records and whatever else may be available. Even the Library of Congress, the things filed in the Library of Congress. So I'm only saying that to say, when you write anything, be very careful about saying things that you cannot prove. And there may be, I might have to slap myself on the wrist for maybe 1 or 2 things that's in here, but for the most part, I really think this is a great document. So the victim, he's pretty much introduced the same way, except for it says Qasim is being held captive under corporate warship slave name, and then you have his slave name in there. Okay. I like this part. This isn't a requirement, right? But you have to put the state party, which means which nation, state under the United States Charter, is involved, but I like state, party, and individual violators, because if this record is going to go up to the highest, one of the highest commercial or whatever you want to call them, courts, whatever type of courts they are, I want the names to be in there of the individual violators, because maybe they may look at this as an opportunity to vacate their position or to really sit back and reevaluate their position. Because some of these people, honestly, and I'm going to tell you after, you know, doing, well, I'm not going to put too much information out here, but after seeing how some of these people think, talking to some of them, they honestly don't understand in their own mind where their authority came from. They were born into ignorance the same way some of us were. So they think just from no specific form of reference that they just are authoritative by that's the way it is. Some of them think like that, okay? So this gives them a chance and an opportunity to even reevaluate their position when they say, oh shit, this shit, whoa, Hillary Clinton, huh? The commissioner on human rights. And then, so after you see your name in the document for things that if it ain't true, you can rebut it. Um, then here's the rights that's violated: right to self-determination, you know, nationality, you know, and this right to self-determination is also found in the Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People. And so those are all human rights instruments. So you're going to find human rights in all of those documents. You know, recognition of rights without discrimination upon the basis of national origin. This is like your civil rights. You see how you're saying you like by you don't lose any rights by not being a corporation. You understand what I'm saying? And not to say that this is, well, I'm not even going to go there because I don't want to confuse anybody. So, no one shall be held in slavery, torture, cruel treatment, right to, just read some of these because these are all the things and the protections. You know, you may have a remedy through human rights, you know, and I say it's a remedy either way. You know, I'm not, you know, of course the end result is to, you know, for them to relinquish their jurisdiction, and so this individual can have freedom. But a remedy, you know, also may be the fact of putting the fraud in the record. You know what I'm saying? Letting people see. You know how they used to post like the faces of criminals and stuff, quote unquote. We'll start posting these people are violating rights, and if not, then let them put their statement up there or just acquiesce and accept the facts. And the whole 7 years that you got to live with that, because somebody may just decide to go back and then, you know, once we get to our master status in law, we may just start to go back and start prosecuting all the record of fraud. So another thing, very important, put this stuff on record. You see what I'm saying? 7 years. That's another one of those numbers. Okay. Anyway, I'm just kind of getting excited while I'm doing this, I guess. So I hope these videos are beneficial for you, because sometimes I don't do them as much because I really don't know. You know, it takes a while to prepare. This one I'm just kind of doing on the fly, but I want it to be beneficial. All right, exhaustion, administrative process, whatever. All right, we'll go through that. No, facts of the complaint. So only thing I want to point out in here, and when you read through this document, I want you to pay attention to how I do my best to express the truth of what happened, and at the same time show how it exactly violates one of the articles. Okay, because if not, they're going to try to, I'm not going to say they are going to try to, but we know in the statutory or these so-called courts, you know, operating under the United States corporation, and some of these other several state corporations, these courts often try to, if you give them wiggle room, they're going to take the wiggle room. If you let them misconstrue something, they're going to misconstrue something. So we want to be as exact and on point to show how the violations or omissions were direct violations and breaches to this international committee or international committee on civil and political rights, human rights instrument. All right. And also, as more, you know, I also bring up the treaty. And I'm not certain if this is a treaty that's, I doubt it's on deposit with the United Nations, but it might be. I hadn't really found out much. The treaties, from what I understand, are held in depositories around the world. So if somebody had some free time, it would probably be interesting to find out which depository or exactly where the treaty, the peace treaty of 1836, or where that is, where it's deposited. That'd be interesting. But because the United Nations does govern the laws between the nations, if you will, then I also allege some treaty violations. And I don't spend a lot of time on it because this document, in their jurisdiction is basically for claims against human rights. So, just kind of like if you bring a claim in the statutory courts of the United States, if you bring something on the federal level, then you have there's like a concurrent jurisdiction where they can kind of still hear things on in that belong in lower jurisdictions. So that's kind of why I threw the treaty in there. And I'm only saying that because if you do a human rights claim, don't spend a whole lot of time talking about things that may or may not be, irrelevant. Stick to what you know is relevant. Okay? Boy, I'm just long-winded. uh, let's see. Facts of the complaint. Okay, that the victim is being held as surety under the colorful administration of the estate of Matthew R. Smith, which is occurring in the 10th Judicial District of Suffolk County, Suffolk County Court in Suffolk County, New York, under accusation number blah 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 blah. So basically, I'm exposing what it is. This is an account, that all capital name, and it's and whether you want to say it's an account, it's an estate, or whatever. I think in this particular case, it's an estate, but all capitals, capitis or capituus diminutio maxima. See, I can say this because I can, I don't have to prove what I'm saying, because as a matter of fact, the reference proved this. But capitis diminutio maxima, when the name is written in all caps, establishes the highest loss of status, such as that of a slave. So I can say that, the victim is being held under the colorful administration of the estate, which is the dead thing, the assets of the dead thing, basically. So they're administering his estate, which is occurring now already. That's the commercial thing. So I just established that they're proceeding against a living man under commercial pretenses, violating his birthright, because he has a higher card, right? Original jurisdiction. I have known Kassim since May of 2012, when he sought my assistance to correct and redress the wrongdoings he is suffering at the hands of, then I named the individual violators. The actors by colorable proceedings before the court, and I shouldn't have said before the court like that, but that comes from trying to help people, Moors, that are in colorable courts. Okay, but anyway, the actors by colorable proceedings before the court are alleging that Kassim is the surety for debts arising out of alleged statutory crime, but have failed to produce a lawful claim for which remedy may be granted. Okay, so they're acting as if, what I'm saying here is they're acting as if their court has some authority in law. It means they're acting under color of law, right? But they're trying to say you did this statutory crime, which is a lower jurisdiction, right? And they're crimes that are not against people. They don't have corpus delicti, but they're trying to proceed as if they're courts of law. And in doing so, they're trying to get him to succumb or subject himself to their jurisdiction. And since he's a Moor and he's not going to do that, they're not giving him any relief. They're saying, yeah, you can come in this jurisdiction and plead and get an attorney and do all this type of stuff, but that is subjecting him to slavery, you see, and slavery is a violation of the human rights. So they're pretty much saying, oh, you're breaking our statutory code, and he's immune to the statutory code, and they're not giving him anything for which he can say, okay, here's your solution. I mean, the worst thing they can do is say, okay, well, pay us $50,000 and hand out a bill. And then they'll say, okay, maybe do a discharge on it or just say, okay, whatever, right? But the only thing I'm trying to get you guys to understand is what is this actually saying? Spend a lot of time on it. But I'm also saying that because even, this whole thing about failure to state a claim upon which relief can be granted, like they like to say in the federal courts, that is some type of legal thing that finds its way in several jurisdictions. And basically what it's saying is, if you're bringing a claim, your claim has to be able to cite some form of agreement, or it has to cite some type of cause as to why that specific claim entitles you to relief. If you fail to state the reason of why you're entitled to relief, and that reason has to be a type of reason that is recognizable in that court, something that they can, a claim that they can work with or liquidate, then they're going to hit you with the failure to state claim. I hope all that makes sense. But anyways, that's what you see there. So I'll read that again. The actors by colorable proceedings before the court are alleging that Cassine is a surety for debts arising out of alleged statutory crime, but have failed to produce a lawful claim for which a remedy may be granted, or which a remedy may be provided, is probably what I should have said. And I could be naive, and maybe some of you guys, until I'm explaining it, didn't really understand everything that's in here, but I really think that these individuals will understand all of this, because basically, although it is a human rights thing, they're really operating the court up there, is what it is. Let's see. William Condon, judge, as the administrator, has taken an oath to the Constitution for the United States, which under Article 6, Section 2, creates a duty and an obligation to adhere to the provisions of the Treaty of Peace. William Condon, judge, by force has blocked Cassine's right to invoke a consular jurisdiction under Article 20 of the Treaty of Peace. And that's because, listen, Moors, you have the right to invoke a consular jurisdiction. And then you say, well, what if there is no consular jurisdiction? By the way, last time Taj Tariq Bey and the crew from RV Bay Publications was down here in Maryland, they had a document and it looked real good. It was on parchment paper and it had some seals and signatures. Some Moors had put it together, and it was the re-establishment of the consular court. So I believe, I'm pretty certain that's what it was. So if I remember tomorrow, I want to ask them about that document and perhaps an address and a point of contact for the I don't want to call it the clerk, but the administrator of the consular court, so then that perhaps some can entertain the notion of, when you really challenge the jurisdiction and invoking the consular court, that you can file a record into the court, letting them know where that court is, and perhaps removing the matter to the proper jurisdiction. It's just a thought, it's just something to think about, because if we're going to create a court and establish it, then we might as well be using it or asserting our right to use it. But anyways, people, if you're like, oh well, Teddy Roosevelt or whatever president did it. I don't think it was Roosevelt. No, but I don't really know. But whichever president did it, and one of them did it. I read it before. Eisenhower, I think, did away with the consular courts. In the absence of proper jurisdiction, any such dispute which may arise under the treaty must be dealt with according to the ordinary methods for the settlement of international disputes. See, there you go. Who can argue with that? The actor's willingness to enforce the liability on the victim as a surety, but refusal to recognize the victim as a living man and a person in law, leaves no evidence that the actors are not engaged in extortion, fraud, racketeering, as well as human rights violations as alleged herein. The actors are conducting commerce and processing claims against the estate of Matthew R. Smith. And I had to throw this part in here, civil liter mortuus. So I name all caps, civil liter mortuus. What's that signifying is not a negative thing or a positive thing. It's just bringing it to light of what it is. from which the actors are alleging to have received a right or entitlement over the living man and the victim, Qasim Ali Bey, through various undisclosed contracts. See reference E. What is reference E? Oh, I know what that is. We'll go to the references later. These acts have the effect of diminishing the victim's rights and blatantly violates Article 5 of the International Committee on Civil and Political Rights, prohibiting states from engaging in activity aimed at the destruction of human rights. Okay, it gets better. So what I'm doing is, well, first let me explain. Let me touch on what I'm doing here. When I say, okay, so basically what I just said here is this all capital letter names, which when you look at the reference shows you what the definition is, which means the maximum loss of status. It's an implied adhesion contract, basically. It's what it is. Because they throw it on paper and they act like, oh, you acquiesced to it because you didn't say nothing about it. And technically, you're becoming aware of it at the same time makes it fraud because it's a contract of adhesion and you didn't give full disclosure and they knew that. Okay. But these acts of diminishing a victim's rights blatantly violates Article 5. Okay, so Article 5 is organizations taking part in activity that prohibit or violate human rights and things like that. So that's basically what that is. But what I was trying to show you is how I tied the two together, and now I really get I get more involved in that as we go through the document. Something else I have to point out, look for this because I never properly identified this, which I should have. When I said the international, and I got to keep, I want to say committee. I say covenant, it's convention. I'm sorry, and I keep saying it wrong. The International Convention, or the International, what is it? ICCPR. Jeez. I know I wrote it the right way. Okay, International Committee on Civil and Political Rights. No convention, not covenant. But anyways, just identify that ICCPR. So you may say International Committee on Civil and Political Rights, then put in parentheses ICCPR. So, because I didn't do that, should have. All right, so I'm going to read number 9. Qasim at no time intentionally or knowingly gave consent, nor at any time has he waived any of his rights acknowledged in the ICCPR, the Treaty of Peace, the Zodiac Constitution, the United States Constitution, or the Universal Declaration on Human Rights. Now, the Zodiac Constitution is a Moorish constitution. I'm not saying it's the only Moorish constitution, so you can supplement this with your constitution, but maybe we should nail this thing down about which constitution it is. I will not even talk anymore about that. The United States Constitution and the Universal Declaration on Human Rights. So basically, he's basically saying that at no time did he knowingly or intentionally give any consent to the proceedings, nor did he waive any of his rights, because they're trying to act as if he's his consent. So that being said, also some have alleged, just throwing this at you so you can use it with your repertoire of things to possibly do. Some people have been able to get rid of civil and alleged criminal matters in court by simply saying things such as, I reserve my rights in accordance with UCC Article 1, Section 308. And other people saying, hey, I do not consent to any of the proceedings. I'm only here under duress and coercion. It's not always that, it's most of the time not that simple, but hey, sometimes it is. So just wanted to kind of share that because it fit where we were. The actors do not have jurisdiction over or more, and the subjection of Qasim to their implied contracts of adhesion is a violation of Article 8 of the ICCPR, where no one shall be held in slavery. To be forced into a contract without a remedy is slavery. Look up what the definition of slavery is, and you will see, right? So it's kind of interesting because somebody may say that's not necessarily slavery, but in order to understand that, go look up the definition of slavery, right? and you'll see what it is. Don't automatically assume slavery means somebody's got to be beating you in the back with a whip. Look it up by definition. The proceedings before the court, LES, and also notice how, and this is good, I like this one a lot. It's only 2 lines, it's to the point, but it's straight up, it told the truth of what is occurring, and at the same time, it shows how it directly relates. Slavery, that's simple, you know. So this is really a difficult thing to challenge, and that's how you want your things written, things that warrant consideration, because they can't be challenged without a direct statement that's either gonna be true or false. That makes sense, right? Yeah. So basically, the only way you can challenge this particular statement is to say that subjecting someone to implied or adhesion contracts without their consent does not constitute slavery. Well, you could say it, but I don't think it's the type of intelligent argument that anybody's going to want to stand behind. It just makes it look like you're stretching and reaching, which now means, what's your interest in the matter? Because if you can't show me what your interest in the matter is, then I think that you have some type of hidden interest, and you're just, violating my rights, prejudicing my rights because of you also being involved in my right to self-determination, to afford me the rights that I'm entitled to anyways. Yeah, I'm just kind of rambling. But anyways, let's see. Where else can we talk about in here? But that's all I really want to show you. This is when you do your claims, show how the actions have directly violated a particular right. Now, I'm bringing a particular claim, or I'm bringing a particular bill into a court that processes these types of bills. They're just saying, if you're going to bring a bill here, bring something that we can process so we can make some money off of it, right? Okay, that's how they think. So use it against itself, if you will. And at the same time, we're still going to get a win because we're putting it in the public record. Anyways, let's go read some more of it. The actors, okay, we already read that. Let's go down to 10. Actors do not have okay, we read that. 11. The proceedings before the court are void ab initio for violating the lawful process, usurping jurisdiction, and enforcing contracts under color of law. The aforesaid are violations of Article 5 and 9, which respectively prohibit the actors from taking part in actions which promote the violation of human rights. Sorry, hold on. Those are some other violations. Acting William Condon, doing business as judge, has failed to respond to the questions of jurisdiction and authority over Moors, which violates Article 2 of the ICCPR and is an act of discrimination based off of national origin. Right? Now, now look, if I'm asserting my national origin, my nationality, so that my rights, can be acknowledged as a result of who I am as an indigenous man and the treaties and everything else and human rights, and they choose to ignore my national status for the purpose of ignoring my rights and subjecting me to slavery, is a human rights violation, right? You can't say that you have a right to a nationality and then at the same time say, okay, I'm going to give you nationality, but block all the rights that come along with it. That's discrimination based off of national origin. Okay? So, anyways, the actors must produce their delegation of authority, nationality, and status in the interest of protecting the victim's right to equal protection under Article 26 of the ICCPR. That's kind of like, I don't know, go read it. Yeah, because I'm not going to say any more about this. I read enough. But at the end, it also goes into the physical abuse. Again, there was some physical abuse, meaning that they beat this brother with their hands because he didn't want to consent to being their surety. So they beat him so that they can get his seal, his thumbprint. Anyways, again, just to wrap this up, I'm I'm saying download this document because we need to do some selfless things. Help someone. If you know someone that is a victim of human rights violation, especially if you've already done different types of appeals and nothing else is working, hey, let's put it in the put the fraud in the public. Also, something else I want you guys to uh, learn, or something, it's way that I do things, is I have gotten out of the habit of trying to bring claims against fictitious organizations. I always go after the individuals. They have a whole staff of directors and people that do not have immunity. So I go after the individuals, and because it's hard to fight an enemy if you don't know who the enemy is. You know, that's just common sense. So you know, to have a complete claim, you already have to know what you're trying to attach to, whether that be some type of bond, or even if it, at least, even if you don't know exactly what you're going to attach to, the closest thing that we can identify these individuals with is their um, government names. So bring your bring your demand for remedy to them individually by names as officers of corporations, which makes them fiduciaries to you when your rights are involved. So it makes them fiduciaries, giving them a duty and an obligation, and giving you a contract from which your claim arises. So I only say that to say, deal with individuals. Find out who the director is, deal with that person. So even when you're going through whatever process or issue you have, you're accepting that person's oath or whatever they have as collateral to guarantee their performance of their fiduciary obligation, which their fiduciary obligation is to do whatever it is you demand they do, unless it is something prohibited. Because if it's not prohibited and it's not violating any laws, they're there to fulfill what it is that you need to have done. Okay, anyways, and then registered mail, because the way you send securities, from my understanding, is registered mail, and a claim is a security, and that's why I'll also mention, because because Article Article 30 entitles victims to compensation. I don't know why I said Article 30. That just popped up in my head. It's not Article 30. But no, I was looking at 30 on the screen here. But because the International Committee on Civil and Political Rights does entitle a victim for compensation, we ask for compensation of no less than $1 million, which is still very friendly. It should have been a lot more. But the only reason why I said that is because this is a security. It's a claim of interest, right? It's a claim of interest that what happens if you don't rebut a security, or what happens when a claim just sits? It gets perfected. So accountability requires that you send this $1 million security interest via registered mail, because you register securities. You register securities to the fiduciary or the recipient or the trustee or whoever whatever in care of individual is receiving it. All right. So just trying to expand your understanding here, um, and hopefully, you know, at least the premium members, we're going to get into bonding, learning how to bond our claims and studying and learning this thing together. I just research and watch what they're doing, and then go back and research it, or maybe reverse engineer it, as they say. Not really reverse engineer it, but just really take it apart and understand what it is, because there's nothing that a corporation can do that an individual can't do, and there's no law that establishes it that way. Again, I tell people we perish for our own lack of knowledge. We got to look at ourselves and we got to correct those flaws. Anyways, please help someone and share this document. And yeah, so let's get on right on to another video. So thank you for watching. Make sure you visit thctrust.org. Support us by becoming a premium subscriber, premium membership subscriber, whatever, $16 a month. You are solely responsible for starting and stopping your membership, and not your membership, but your premium membership. And what that does is it basically gives you access to another tab on the site that has information exclusive for premium members only, and a couple things that I'm actually involved with. So when I start dropping things about bonds and the higher level things that I'm doing, then the premium subscribers will have access to it. Anyways, peace out, people.